So I was thinking about how I wish there were some sort of series of videos explaining the history of racial segregation in American cities in a comprehensive and accessible way. And then I realized, wait a second, I literally have a master's degree in this. I'm a professional city planner. Why don't I make those videos? So here we are. My name is Shelly, and your city is probably racist. First topic, redlining. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to define redlining as the systematic denial of financial homeownership incentives to certain neighborhoods, almost exclusively based on race. Let's dig into the history. During the Great Depression, the federal government, under President Franklin D. Roosevelt, released a series of government-sponsored economic stimulus programs and policies called the New Deal. One of those programs was called the Homeowners Loan Corporation, or HOLC for short. HOLC was intended to prevent foreclosures and encourage homeownership by refinancing private mortgages. Basically, the government would buy mortgages from lenders and then refinance those mortgages for homeowners so the homeowners could pay a lower interest rate over a longer period of time. But the federal government wasn't able to provide this financing to everybody or wasn't willing to provide this financing to everybody. So they sent assessors through cities across America to determine the risk of different neighborhoods. Risk was determined according to things like the condition of the housing, the proximity of a neighborhood to amenities like parks, if a neighborhood was near a polluting industry, and yes, race. These notes were then turned into residential security maps. These maps show a city organized into 4 categories, denoted by 4 colors. Green was considered, quote, best. Blue was still desirable. Yellow was definitely declining, and red was, quote, hazardous. You can probably guess what the racial makeup was of the green areas versus the red areas. There are a lot of great resources online where you can explore the assessor notes and residential security maps for different cities. I'll provide some links in the description. But let's look at this website from the Digital Scholarship Lab from the University of Richmond. So we're looking at a list of neighborhoods in Richmond, Virginia to see how assessors described the type of inhabitants in each of the 4 categories. You'll notice that in the green areas, remember, those were the neighborhoods considered to be lowest risk, the assessors said that they were inhabited by, quote, best people. That's code for affluent white folks. As you move through the colors, you'll see that they become more working class until finally you get to red, in which you have almost exclusively Black residents. So what does this have to do with today? It shouldn't come as a surprise that racial segregation maps today look almost exactly like the residential security maps of the New Deal. Green areas are still predominantly white, while red areas are still majority minority. A 2018 study by the National Community Reinvestment Coalition did the statistical legwork and found that, indeed, the redlined neighborhoods of the 1930s are still majority minority today. And these maps weren't just used for the Homeowners Loan Corporation. They were used by public and private agencies for decades to determine who was worth loaning to. In 1968, the federal government passed the Fair Housing Act, which made discriminating against protected classes, including racial minorities, in housing and mortgage lending illegal. But it turns out making it illegal didn't actually stop it from happening. According to the Center for Investigative Reporting, Black and Latinx folks are still denied mortgages at a significantly higher rate than white folks. And that's just one example of the way that racial minorities face housing discrimination today. And we gotta remember, redlining didn't exist in a social vacuum. But that's the really insidious thing about institutional racism. It's a system, and systems are designed to be self-perpetuating. Redlining was a major tool that produced and reproduced racism in American cities, and we really haven't done much to try to remedy it. If you're interested in learning more about the history of racism in American city planning and policy, I recommend the book The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. He does an excellent job laying out the ways that racism shaped American cities. My name is Shelly, and your city is probably racist.